Thank you very much. Ja, die spore loop diep. Ben was my supervisor when I did. So we go back quite a long way. And you were talking about artifacts, and I always used to think an artifact is something very old that they dig up under the ground, and then they dust it off and put it on a shelf. I am getting a bit older, Ben, but I might be old and grey, but I'm not yet full of sleep. So I'm still going. But thank you as well for having been an excellent supervisor and really a role model that took me on my journey. I was involved with DaVinci from 2010 and also served on the council, first as the student rep and then the alumni representative. But I want to say it is an extreme privilege to be a supervisor in DaVinci, in this institution. I fully believe in the DaVinci academic project. And when I say that, it's not from just because I did my doctorate here, and not just because Ben's here, and because I've walked some paths here. It's because I've worked out there in the world of education. And I've probably had the privilege, benefit, but also some days not such a benefit, to be very involved in education policy and what's happening in all the regulators and everything. And every time I think of DaVinci, you stand out head and shoulders amongst a lot of what else happens there. So to me as a supervisor, it's an incredible privilege always. Edward said something that really struck me. Don't be guilty about your privilege, but pay it forward. And when I graduated, I was determined that I would pay it forward and I would remain involved as a supervisor, as an examiner, and in whichever way I could be used in the DaVinci space. So, and to me that is very, very important. So I want to say a few things about being a supervisor. The first thing that I'd really like to say and how I have approached it, I've approached it that I need to always be honest, I need to be authentic, and I need to remain curious. So one of the things I've continued to do, even though I'm old and grey and I'm not working, I've finished my formal employment, retired from the Department of Higher Education and Training, and resilient for having come through all of that. So that teaches you a lot of resilience. But I've remained engaged in research myself. And I've always thought that is very important, to feed the curiosity, to try and find solutions to the challenges out there so that when I'm supervising my student or students, I remain curious and I remain a researcher and an academic and a scholar. So I've remained doing that. And that has been very important as a supervisor because you remain in touch with what those things are that your student is also maybe grappling with. I never take anything for granted. I've never done that as a supervisor. When I get a new student, and I'm always extremely privileged to have, I think, the best students that DaVinci can offer. I'm also very pleased, just as a sideline, that as I was just thinking off the top of my head, that 1, 2, 3 of your current doctoral students, I influenced them to come and study here. One of them, my son, I gave him no option. He did his master's. He had no option. Or else mom's disfavor would be there. I'm only joking. But 2 others are on their doctoral journey and influenced, and one of them I'm supervising. And in the past, 3 other doctoral students, I influenced them, one of them being Dr. Connie September, and that was when we were taking, when I still worked at DHET, we were taking that misrepresentation. The NQF amendment bill became an act, and the misrepresentation, fake fraudulent qualifications. She was the chairperson of the portfolio committee. I was the departmental official together with my colleague, Advocate Boshoff. So we would go to the ANC study group the Tuesday evening to brief them. And then on the Wednesday portfolio committee, and we'd finish. Then Connie would say, okay, come, quick. And off we'd go to her office, and then it would change. And I was always reminded, being a supervisor is not a power position. It's not a Foucaultian sort of a power position. That was the other thing. So in the research, I retained that. Journeying with my student, alive to research, alive to challenges. And the last piece of work, and one of these days, Ben, I'm going to come and knock on DaVinci's door for a second PhD, but a body of work PhD. Because I've finished a project recently for the Department of Basic Education. And it was European Union funded through Treasury, the three departments, DBE, DHET, and Department of Employment and Labour. I was given the DBE bit, but they'd forgotten they had to do it. So in January, middle of January, I got a frantic phone call. They were looking for somebody to write about the three-stream model, introducing vocational and occupational education into schooling, and so that there would be a wider spread. And they had forgotten to ask somebody who understood articulation. So I had to do that project middle January to end of June, an 80-day project, well, the project in 80 days. While Juliet and I were busy, I was busy at the same time looking at ontology and epistemology and you name it, and sharpening all the tools and grounded theory and triangulation. And yeah, we were busy going through the final stages and getting everything. So that's important for me as a supervisor. Stay in touch. Any student I get, their topic, I will read as well. Not research in like the hectic research that you do, but I read, and I find articles. And it grows a fascination and a respect for this person that I'm supervising. There's a huge respect for their knowledge, their experience, and what they've done, and why they're writing their story. So one of my students that I'm supervising now, for example, is writing her doctorate about care of the aged. And it's taken me on a bit of a journey there as well, and pulled me into areas of looking, as well as the project I did for DBE, a huge deep dive into neurodiversity, students with disabilities, and how our system is not user-friendly or unfriendly. And it took me on the research then into the TVET College students and the NEET youth. And I wondered, how many NEET youth were neurodiverse or maybe had a disability and there was nobody there to help them? So this is part of the research journey together with your student. You read, and it draws a fascination for that, the authenticity, the honesty, robustness, curiosity. The other thing that I believe in the journey of a supervisor is to be that mentor, but also to be somebody who is able to be brave and courageous as you go along the journey, to be able to highlight issues, to guide, to point, and to direct. And also when the journey is brutal, to be able to stand firm in the midst of some of the brutality and say, no, we can't, this is not fair. So that also and that comes again from reading, from research, from asking. The other thing that I do is I will always go and find other theses to read and send it to my students if I think there's a touch point. So Dr. Naledi Pandor, she was at one stage the minister. I worked very closely with her and had huge respect. Ben, you know her very well. DaVinci does from the Technology Top 100. And so she wrote her doctoral thesis, but she used a methodology that I thought suited in Juliet's case and certain ways that she wrote. So I also always look for tone, for style, for approach, etc. And so I will read other theses and send it to the student to say, just, you're battling a bit here. Take a step back, read this one and this one, just to get a sense of different writing, different content, and how that thing, whether it's an ontology, whether it's how you reference, etc. So that became part of and has always been part of my journey as a supervisor. And I have supervised since, for a number of years. I've had numbers of doctorals and master's students in DaVinci. And I found that gives the student a little bit of confidence and assurance that they're not on the journey alone. There are other people, they're reading other work. And then just always to be honest and truthful to the institution that trusted you enough to give you one of their very, very precious cargo. Juliet, cargo. The cargo and the road freight and all of those great things and the customs, and to trust you with one of their very precious cargo. Trust you enough that you'll get them over that finishing line. And Ben, I want to say thank you for the incredible privilege to have been a supervisor, to continue to be a supervisor. I've got 3 very active and 1 student that's had a lot of trauma in her life, but to be there. And then maybe I'll be too full of sleep after that. But thank you for the incredible opportunities. And Edward, I hope that one day you will also say, you know, I knew people, lots of them, who were not guilty about the privilege but paid it forward, and that they paid it forward into their alma mater, into DaVinci. So I fully believe the journey of DaVinci, you're at the beginning, you're at the end of the beginning. As we look at new institutional types, and we look at the knowledge now that you can be a university or a university college or a higher education college, I believe with everything that I know about education and training, institutional types, quality assurance, that DaVinci is a model of excellence and should strive for the highest. So thank you.